Most people think that tax and spending limits keep taxes and government spending less than it would be without them. However, a recent study by the Colorado Future Center at Colorado State University showed that the majority of property taxpayers in Colorado now pay more in school taxes than they would have without the limits. In 1992, Colorado voters approved the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or TABOR, an amendment to the state constitution designed to restrict government growth and limit tax increases. But the Colorado Future Center study found that 81% of Colorado taxpayers actually pay more in public school property taxes than they would have if TABOR didn't pass. Why? To meet the requirements of the state constitution, the legislature and governor have enacted laws that define a per-pupil amount of revenue for each of Colorado's 178 school districts. This revenue comes from two sources: local property taxes imposed by the district and state aid that comes mostly from sales and income taxes. All property owners and renters pay property taxes to schools. Then the state steps in to pay the difference between the amount of property tax raised in each district and their per-pupil revenue. The amount of property tax you pay is determined by two things: the value of your property and the tax rate, called the mill levy. Before TABOR passed in 1992, nearly all of the state's 178 school districts paid the same tax rate. Today, only 39 pay the same rate, and 139 districts pay at lower rates. One district pays a tax rate that's about 94% lower, and even though their rate is so low, the state still pays more than 80% of their school bill. So, how did that happen? Did the legislature and the governor mess up the way the law was written? Not at all. Remember how TABOR was meant to put limits on taxes and spending? It does, usually. In fact, it's the reason that you sometimes get tax refunds, and it's why you're asked to vote on all tax increases. But TABOR also has many limits that most people don't know about. Two of them apply to school district property taxes: a property tax revenue limit and a mill levy limit. TABOR limits property tax revenue to the amount collected in the previous year, plus enrollment growth or decline and inflation, but it doesn't adjust for changes in taxable value. For example, some parts of the state have gained a lot of property value due to natural resource development like oil and gas extraction or recreational and gaming growth. However, this doesn't necessarily mean there have been more school enrollments, so the only way to keep from violating the limit is to reduce their tax rate. Other parts of the state have seen decreases in school enrollment since TABOR was passed, so their property tax limit has declined, but their property values have been stable. So again, the only way not to violate the limit is to cut the tax rate. The second provision, the mill levy limit, dictates that once a rate is reduced, it can't be increased again without a vote. This means that once districts have a lower rate, they continue to pay lower amounts even if their number of enrollments goes up. Remember that before TABOR, most districts paid the same tax rate. Over the 2.5 decades since TABOR was passed, these two limits have caused different districts to pay dramatically different rates, and most of the districts paying lower rates are getting more of their budget from the state. So what would happen if these two limits of TABOR had not been enacted? Most districts would pay the same rate, and because state aid would be distributed differently among the districts, school districts currently paying the highest rates would have their tax rates reduced. That would mean lower taxes for most Coloradans. The current system is not only unfair, but it's also costing many Colorado taxpayers a lot of money. 80% of the state's taxpayers are paying a tax rate up to 15% higher than if the two limits didn't exist. This is obviously a problem that needs to be fixed, but because TABOR is embedded in the state constitution, neither the legislature nor the governor has the authority to change it. Changes to TABOR's limits can only be enacted by the voters. To fix this problem, elected officials, community leaders, and taxpayers need to join hands to find a solution. To learn more, visit coloradofutures.colostate.edu.